Hey there and welcome into another basketball preview video as we take a look at Waterloo Columbus today. Well, again, there'll be two videos as there has been for, well, the most of last week and a half or so. Again, Columbus is the focus of those videos today. We'll start with the girls, of course. And by the way, if you have not seen those other videos, you can find them over on my Twitter. Find me at Taylor from Kway. That's Taylor from Kway. That's on Twitter. Obviously, you can find the videos here on YouTube as well. And so let's just get on into it. The preview for Waterloo Columbus on the girls' side of things, what I think they are going to be able to do here this year. And so first, we've got to take a look back. What did this Columbus girls team do last year? And for some of you Columbus fans, maybe you don't want to look back. 4-18 was the record last year for the Sailors of Waterloo Columbus. Their season ended with a 79-52 loss to Osage. And Columbus, they averaged 44 points per game. You know, it's maybe not the worst, but it's not great. It's not great at all. That's not a great point total that you want to be averaging on a season's basis by any stretch of the imagination. A huge contributing factor to that, and a huge contributing factor to the record was the amount of turnovers and the assists compared to those turnovers. 237 assists on the year last year, 493 turnovers. That is far too many turnovers. And I think those players, coaches, they'll tell you the same thing. They just turned the ball over way too much last year. And that's going to be a huge factor in, if they have a bounce back season, if you will. If they have a season that, sees them win a few more games, a big reason is going to be down to the turnovers. Can they limit those turnovers? And they're really going to have to slash the amount of turnovers that they had by quite a bit. Now, they've got the talent to do so. A lot of the girls that we're going to talk about here in just a moment, a lot of them were on a state tournament soccer team, were on a state tournament softball team, and had some success in volleyball. Of course, won a state title, not this past season, but the season before. So a lot of these girls have had success in other sports. And so just knowing you've got the athletes, you're automatically already a little more in a better place than a lot of other schools would be in the same situation. So, that's an important thing for Columbus. And it's certainly got to be something that they look towards, something that sort of gives them a little bit more of a jump start, if you will. They know that they've got athletes. They know that they've got winners on their team, and as I mentioned, that's something that a lot of teams, they can't say. So that's good as far as Columbus goes. Columbus, rebound-wise, 30.7 rebounds a game, really not terrible. Obviously, that number can go up, and they would like it to, no doubt about it, but it's not the worst number that you'll see. They did also tend to score more points in the second and fourth quarters. Now, yes, in the fourth quarter, probably in some of those games, they were getting blown out, and so they were facing sort of the second team, if you will, against the teams they were playing, and so it was easier to score at that juncture. But it's interesting that they also scored more points in the second quarter. That kind of leads me to believe that they had some troubles getting going at the start of games and coming out of halftime. And I don't know if it's, whatever they're doing in warm-ups, if they're not going hard enough in the layup lines. I don't know. Maybe it's, it may be a bit of a coaching thing as well, where the coaches maybe just didn't quite have them ready to go straight out of the gate, and they had to work themselves into the game, and by that point, they likely probably had built themselves a little bit of a hole to dig out of. And so I think that maybe could be a spot where not only the girls can work on, but perhaps the coaches can maybe tinker with some things, see if they can figure something out to get the team going quicker right out of the gate. I think that would go a long ways to establishing them as a little bit more of a successful basketball team this season as well. That, again, obviously is along with cutting down on the turnovers. point differential wise, they averaged losing by 15.6 points a game. Again, that tells you there's a number of blowouts in there, and obviously anytime you have 18 losses, that number is probably going to be fairly significant. So yeah, it's a team. It's a season last year that Columbus, I'm sure, would like to forget about, would like to move on, and would like to make it a season that nobody remembers, because they're thinking about much more success here this season. And so if they are to have more success this season, we got to look to some of the players that will be on this roster and will be doing the playing. And the first name that needs to be mentioned, Sydney Schultz. She's the leading scorer coming back from last year. Now, she only played 18 games, where 22, I believe, is the amount of games that they played on the season. So she did miss a couple of games, but averaged 10 points a game. That is a solid output for Sydney Schultz. Obviously, Sid is an outstanding athlete. She's a big-time contributor on the volleyball team. She's the goalkeeper on the soccer team. Catcher on the softball team. She hits like crazy in softball as well. She's an outstanding athlete, and having her on the team is fantastic. Now, here's the thing. Sid often finds herself down in the paint working as a post player, and she's going to be outsized most games. Now, not a lot of teams can match her, her athleticism, first of all, but also just her tenacity and her, just gamerism, if you will. She's just a gamer. She wants to take the game right to you, and she wants to beat you, and she's talented enough to do so many times. And so it's not going to be easy for her this season, because, as I mentioned, she's going to be often times going up against a much bigger defender, and defending much bigger players as well. But that's the task in front of her, and I think she's going to do her best. I would fully expect her to be in double figures again, and perhaps be the leading scorer once again for Columbus. And she may need to bump up that scoring average if they are to improve upon the season that they had last year, because there is a name or two that are gone from last year's team, and Sydney probably is going to have to be the one that mostly picks up for that lack of scoring, and because the roster is a little thin, at least in my opinion. Other than Sydney, you've also got Allie Vesely coming back. I really like Allie Vesely. Now, she's just a sophomore this year. As a freshman, she showed some things. She can play down in the low post. I really like her game. She can be a threat. She averaged 6.2 points a game. Man, I think she's going to be closer to 10. I think she'll be closer to double figures this year, and I think Sydney Schultz and Allie Vesely could be quite the duo in the paint for Columbus. The question will be who's going to be handling the ball, who's going to be who are going to be the players that are getting those to the ball. I think that's the biggest question. Intertwined with how do you cut down on the turnovers. I think it's kind of the same question that you're asking there. Who's going to be those guards, those players out on the wing? That's the biggest question I think Columbus is going to need to answer. Malia Little may be one of those players. I mean, I fully expect her to be one of those players. But is she the answer? Is she the one that's going to help cut down on those turnovers and pick up the assists, getting the ball to Sydney Schultz and Allie Vesely? Little, a senior, will be a senior this year, averaged just under 6 points a game last year. And there's going to be some other names. There's going to have to be some other names that step up here from last year's team. Some younger players who maybe didn't get a whole lot of play are going to be thrust right on into the starting lineup in some cases, I think, as well as the Sailors lose Olivia Fain, who, of course, was an outstanding athlete in multiple sports as well. She averaged 8 points a game last year, did a lot of the ball handling. She led the team in rebounds as well. She kind of did it all for Columbus, if I'm being honest with you. So you lose her, and that's quite a bit to make up for. Also, Lily Christensen, an outstanding three-point shooter, shot 30% on the year last year, took 144 threes last year. You lose her shooting ability, and how do you make up for that outside threat as well? And so we'll have to see what they do. As I mentioned, the roster is a little thin as far as experience goes, and as far as quality experience goes as well. So getting those players up to speed and into varsity play quickly and comfortable with it and knowing what they're going to do, that's going to be a key. So the early part of the season, really going to be watching Columbus to see how they start, as I think that's going to be absolutely vital. We talked about Fain, her leading the team with 7 rebounds last year. Sydney Schultz did have 5 rebounds a game. Holly Vesley at 3.4. Both of those need to go up. I think both need to kind of be in the 7-8 range probably. If they can dominate the glass, that will go a long ways. I think Kayla Sproul is another player that likely could help them down in the paint, rebounding-wise and otherwise as well. The real question, I'm not as concerned in the paint now. None of those 3 are, standing 6'3" and can scoring whenever they want. But I think they are talented athletes who will be able to handle themselves down the low post. A little undersized for sure, but I think they're okay down there. The real question, as I mentioned, will be out around the perimeter. Who's handling the ball? Who's going to play that guard spot? That really is the biggest question for me, and it is a big question because the turnovers need to be cut down, and the assists need to go up. And so we'll see how that all goes. As far as a rating for this team, if you're unfamiliar with the ratings, a 1 would mean that I think they are a title contender, a state title contender. A 2 would be a team that I think is a state tournament contender, a team that should expect to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season. A 3 is a team that I'm expecting to win more than they're going to lose, and maybe if the draw turns out extremely well in postseason, they may go on a bit of a run. And a 4 would be a rebuilding team. And this Columbus team, coming off a 4-18 season and losing their leading rebounder, their leading assister, and second leading scorer, I've got them as a 4. I've got them as a rebuilding team. I think that the results of this season maybe aren't the most important thing. I think it's going to be much more important for them to just continue to improve and get some of those younger players some playing time and have them see some success. But I honestly, if you're a Columbus fan, I wouldn't necessarily go into this season thinking you're going to see a whole bunch of success and a whole bunch of wins and a state tournament run. Perhaps I'm wrong. I could be, but I do think it's going to be a little bit of a tough one this year for Columbus. Now, those are my thoughts, and of course, don't forget that we'll have a number of Columbus games on the K-Way airwaves this year. Stay tuned to K-Way so that we can tell you exactly which games we are doing and which Columbus games we may be covering as well. So make sure you stay tuned. But that's going to do it for me. Until next time, I'm Taylor Nitz. Okay, bye.